Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. I'm your host Michael McCall, bringing you another packed show from AFTN Tower's quarantine bunker. We've got a lot in store for you tonight. We're going to be speaking to two Whitecaps players, Janio Bikel and Fredy Montero. We're going to be looking at some of the stories that's made the news this week in North America. And we're going to kick things off with our usual Around the World with Joe Corona section. Although we're not so much going around the world this week, we're sticking firmly in North America and Major League Soccer and the Canadian Premier League. There have been some stories from elsewhere. The Bundesliga were hoping to get back to playing in May, but local restrictions and government restrictions might not make that possible. Premier League is talking about getting back into action in June. Championship clubs have been giving their players 3 weeks holiday just now to kind of relax before the season they hope is going to get underway again. In Scotland, the farce that we talked about last week is still rumbling on. Dundee finally voted for the end of the season for the lower leagues. And then football reconstruction is back in the air up there as well, as lots of court cases and legal proceedings and investigations are pending. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more news on those things coming out in the coming weeks, so we'll talk about those later. But for tonight's show, I want to focus specifically on stuff that's happened this week in MLS and the CPL. And I'm delighted to say that joining me once again on the phone to talk about those things is Zachary Adam Eisenheimer. How you doing tonight, Zach?
Good, Michael. Good to be with you.
And just to let everyone know, Steve is alive. It's just he's wanting a little bit of a break just now. So that's why we haven't had him on the show. It's not favouritism. But we are going to be doing some video stuff with Steve. He doesn't know it yet. We've put some secret cameras up in his house. But we're going to do some videos with Steve soon. So check out those on YouTube. Not sure when that's going to happen, but we've done some trials. We'll see what happens. I mean, one thing which is not going to be back anytime soon, no big surprise, is Major League Soccer. Officially, the league put their moratorium out that there will be no matches until at least June 8th. Training is still suspended until April 24th, but obviously that's going to just keep going and going. Again, I still don't know why they don't just say indefinitely, and they just bring it back when they can bring it back. But we know that there's not going to be any MLS football until at least the middle of June. Major League Soccer held a conference call with the Players' Union, the MLSPA, this week, and they discussed a number of things on that. One of the things they discussed was various scenarios, one being that they're looking at if the league came back in 6 weeks, if it came back in the late summer, everything like that as to what it could look like. So, I mean, it's good that they're having all these different scenarios, but the big talking point that came out of that conference call, ESPN reported it on Friday, the conference call took place on Thursday, is that MLS are wanting the players to take some significant pay cuts. Now, in summary, the thought is that if there is no season at all, players will still get 50% off their salaries. If there is a full season, they would get their full salaries. Anything in between nothing and a full season would be kind of prorated. Now, it also does not affect players who earn under 100,000, There would be different scenarios if fans were in attendance as opposed to closed-door games, but we know there's not going to be any fans in attendance at all. I mean, that's pretty obvious right now. But for me, I've tweeted a little bit about this. I just think it's disgraceful when you look at what the owners make from all these expansion fees, 9-figure expansion fees, obscene amounts, 200 million, 250 million, 300 million, to then say that the league's pleading poverty because all this money goes to the owners. The owners should be saying, look, we're going to take care of our players, our employees, and we're going to make sure that they get paid their salaries. I mean, maybe that's just me coming from my left-wing background, but I mean, what was your thoughts on that when you first heard it, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite concerning that they would do this. Maybe they think in the public eye they're shell game what some people understand or agree with or whatever, but people who understand the league and how it operates and how some works know that there's no shortage of money, knows that you can plead all you want on the soccer ops end that you're losing money, but you're making this ton of money on things like expansion fees. And probably a couple other things in there that go with some in terms of some. I think even some of the TV money is through some and all that kind of stuff. So it is concerning that, especially for a league that has such low salaries in comparison to the rest of the world of football, that they're doing this, that they want to take this approach. I mean, there's some upsides, like the fact that anyone on 100 or less, they'll make that, and which is good. You know, thinking about people who live in Vancouver who are making less than $100,000, probably. I mean, they're not. Things are probably super difficult for them, but it's you to live in Vancouver, you need to have money. You need to have a good salary or whatever. So it's good to hear that the low end of the salary people are going to be protected, but it's a little bit concerning. Especially this is an opportunity for a league like MLS, or thinking about like the Whitecaps as an organization. This is an opportunity where you have to show people that you're more than a business, right?
Yeah.
Not that you don't have to be if you don't want to be. That's fine. But here's an opportunity to say, yeah, we know this is going to be bad, and we know this year is going to be bad, and everyone's going through a rough time. But we have this group of owners who is worth so much money. We have so much money that's come in from these sources connected to our club and the league and some. Let's pay our people what we promised them, even though the season's not going to happen. I think of that for both the players and coaches, but also as we talked in the past, the people working in the front office.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a part of this discussion is there are ways that certain types of organizations or whatever, or their organizations can get government funding when their business is down or when their business is heavily impacted because of because of the pandemic, right? So obviously, the owner should use that money as they're able to or whatever. But I don't think people should be not getting paid their pre-agreed upon amount.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's opened up not just here but like elsewhere as well. The government subsidies that are in around the world, people are saying, should sport teams qualify for that? Should sports people qualify for that? I mean, the hockey, there's been some stuff on Twitter today about hockey leagues saying, getting in touch with the government, do they qualify for these? And I don't think you can really say one business does, one business doesn't. I mean, sport, whether we like it or not, sports teams are a business. But as you say, this is the chance for owners to say, yeah, look, we are going to take care of our players. If they have to take a 50% pay cut, we will meet that. Because the owners of these teams are not poor people. And what I'm interested in seeing is some owners may decide that they want to do that. And some owners, and I can think of some that would be like, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. But will some owners get to do that, or will they have to be all bound together? And if some do break ranks, is that going to be a kind of split in this whole pyramid scheme that I keep waiting to crash down at some point.
Yeah. So as of right now, do we know, do sports businesses qualify for, like in Canada, for example?
I don't know. I think they do. But yeah, an interesting thing I was reading today, just as an aside, in Denmark, the Danish government has said any business that is registered in a tax haven, for example, and does not pay Danish tax, they won't qualify for all this relief. So, I mean, that's great. That obviously doesn't apply to these things, but...
No.
So, I mean, some governments might have things put in. I mean, a sports business, it should qualify. That was why the likes of Tottenham and Liverpool were going to do that in England. And then the backlash against them from the public forced them to say, okay, no, we won't use government funds because we make so much money and we're owned by billionaires. We won't take advantage of it. It's different here, I think, for an MLS team compared to, say, an NFL team. Yeah. Because you're talking different money. You're talking the salaries of the players is different. Like the budget for an MLS team is probably less than most NFL players make just individually and stuff like that. Yeah. And we're not talking about well-paid players here on the whole. And that's why it's good that players under 100,000 are protected. But you also have to think as well, some players, their mortgages and where they're buying, it have been taken out based on their salary. Yep. So if you're cutting, I mean, a player that maybe earns 4 million a year, just as an example, they'll have budgeted what their mortgage and stuff is on that, cut that to 2 million, they should probably still afford to pay stuff. But a player on, say, 500,000, cut that by 50% down to 250,000, they could be in some real serious bother. Or even a player on 200,000 cut to 100,000. Yeah. So, I mean, we're not talking about... There's not that many super well-paid players in MLS. Yeah, most of them make more than most of us make for our annual salary. But, I mean, they will have probably bought property and budgeted their lifestyle according on what they're getting paid. And there could be some in real peril after this. And, again... They'll look at what's happening in MLS, they'll look at what's happening around the world. Players that's maybe considering coming over here will look to see how different leagues treat their players, and they'll be like, well, you know what? I don't know that I want to go over there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that in the past, too. Yeah. People take note of how people conduct themselves in times like these, which is I think very true. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I like what you said, too, in terms of if there will be like a hard line like amongst the ownership in terms of like, hey, everyone has to stick to this. So or if anyone would break that and say, no, I'm gonna pay my staff or my players or my people because I believe in it and I can afford it and, whatever.
Yeah, I'd love to get a chance to chat to some of the owners about that. Can't see that happening, but I'll put some requests out, like to Jeff Mallett and the likes, and I mean, it would be interesting. They'll say they probably can't say too much just now. And the other threat that's out there, which was reported, I think, just yesterday, and I was quite stunned by this, the CBA has not actually been ratified yet. So the murmurs were, if the players say, no, we don't agree to these pay cuts, then the owners could say, we're not going to sign the CBA, and then lock the players out.
Oh, wow.
And then they get nothing.
They could not, the owners could not afford that egg on their face, surely.
I don't know. I would not put it past them.
Oh, I wouldn't put it past them.
I would be, like, if that happens, my disgust would seriously make me, I would have to have serious thoughts about whether I could support a league if they did something like that. I might not come to that. I mean, that's worst case scenario. Yeah. But the fact that that's even out there, it's like a threat to the players of, well, if you don't agree to this, you're going to get nothing. You better to take your 50% that we'll give you, or you get nothing. And that's just shocking.
That's terrible. if that is true, that.
Well, I mean, it does seem true that the CBA hasn't been ratified.
No, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the question then is, why? We're into mid-April. It was signed off in February. Why has it not been ratified? mean, that...
Well, they need the players to vote, which surely you would have think they could have done in preseason or the first week of the season.
ESPN had reached out to the MLSPA about the conference call and they refused to comment just now. So, I mean, this could play over the coming weeks. I mean, hopefully, there's going to be some kind of games this season. It's not going to be with fans. I mean, that is almost 100% certain. There's no way fans are going to be at games, which...
Well, here in BC, they've said, like, this summer there will be no, like, large gatherings, right? So no P&E, no Pride.
And I think it was
Dr. Henry, I think, has said that already, basically, in response to questions, not her own.
Yeah, I think the mayor of LA said he doesn't expect fans at sporting events till 2021. And the California governor had also just said in general for the state that would be the case. Now, some states probably will get fans in because some states are going to open up way sooner than others, whether they should or not. That would be a whole other program we could go into, but...
They might initially, but...
Yeah, and then see what happens, and then no one will be going to anything for a while. But I mean, if there are some games and players will get somewhere then between their 50 and 100%, because obviously there's no gate income, and MLS is a rare league, I guess, in terms of world football, top league that relies so heavily on gates as part of their funding structure. And that then also begs the question, and we've talked a little bit about this before, clubs are still, not all clubs, but clubs are still taking season ticket payments. And talked about this with a couple of folk on Twitter this week. The Whitecaps, if you get in touch with them, they will put a hold on your payment, I believe. So you can get in touch with them and say, I'd like a hold on my payment. But this money that's been taken, you then have to ask, will that get refunded? Probably not. Is it then going to get carried over into next year? Probably yes. One fan said to me, well, if my money gets carried over, I'd be looking for interest on that. I'm not giving the Whitecaps an interest-free loan. And, I mean, it opens up all these things, like when would a refund take place? Will there be refunds? Will they carry it over? Legally, can they keep that money for something they haven't given people?
No, they can. I do know from dealing with them on some of these kinds of things in the past, when they owe you money, they really don't want to pay people money. They really do not want money going out, like just in general.
Yeah.
They will do all they can to encourage people to have it as a credit on their account, which will not gain interest.
Yeah.
For sure, unless they want to do something. Unless they give everyone like kind of like a bump or a bonus or a percentage off, the season when they come back, whatever, kind of a bigger percentage off or whatever. But
well, they'll probably put the prices up next year. Put the prices up next year and say, well, we'll give you 2020 prices. That's one way around it. And to play devil's advocate for a minute, the airlines are actually doing that as well. Because you had your cruise cancelled. It's like you don't get a refund, you're getting a credit.
Yeah. Which there's all kinds of like how will this, once things get back to more of a society back to the way it was, how will all of these things play out? How will all of them work?
Well, I mean, you're in uncharted territory, and it's like I do feel sorry for businesses, especially small businesses, because so many of our favourite businesses may not be here by this time next year. But I mean, things like the Whitecaps, this is something, like, for all the planning you can do, you haven't planned for anything like this.
Well, except for Wimbledon, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously. But then that's just a 2-week tournament. This is something that goes on for 9 months, a whole season. And part of the problem is the league not saying, okay, but we still hope to be playing games. We still hope to be playing 34 games. And not saying, if we do play, it's not going to be in front of fans. So, but then, I don't know. It's like there's a lot of headaches ahead for clubs. And if the cash flow at clubs, like taking the whole owner thing out of it, if cash flow at clubs is so determined on payments like this and sponsor money, because of course you might have to be refunding some of that, this could be very, very testing for a number of teams. And the owners will have to dig into their big pyramid scheme pot.
Yep.
And it's not just MLS it's affecting, it's Canadian Premier League as well. So, I mean, just to round off this section with turning attention to closer to home, and, well, a dramatic week in the CPL, and they haven't even played a game so far this season. First of all, it was announced that there was I can't remember what was announced first now, but basically the two big stories coming out was the Canadian players. It's been in the work for a while. They've set up their union, PFA CAN, and it's long overdue. It's something we talked about in the show last year. Was there one? There should be one, and the need for one. And now there is one. And it's the president is a guy we know very well, Marcel de Jong, probably the most experienced player that is in the Canadian Premier League, and I think the ideal person to be the figurehead for that. We'll come to that in a sec. And the other news coming out, coincidentally, is that players have been asked to take a 25% deferment of their salaries, at least for now. And I mean, who knows what happens if there's not even going to be a season. And we talked about a lot of the salaries in MLS aren't much. Compared to CPL, the salaries in MLS are massive, because there's players in CPL that are on less than $30,000 a year. And of course, folk won't know that because they don't have to announce what the salaries are publicly like MLS, because there has been no players' union. And folk might think, oh, the salaries are going to be equivalent to MLS. No. There's a few guys that will be on decent salaries, but there's so many guys on 30,000 and less. And the college guys, for example, I mean, I've spoken to players that they've told me what their salaries have been, and I'm like stunned at what they are. And it's like, how on earth can you live on that? That's how bad the salaries are. I've spoken to Canadian players that's been playing in USL about what their salaries are and what they were offered to play USL teams. And it's like, that's crazy. You can't live on that unless you're getting free accommodation thrown in. So, I mean, these players aren't playing a lot of money, or aren't getting paid a lot of money. So I think they need a players' union more than ever right now, Zach.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, I heard about this a number of months ago. There was, let's say, an individual, a third-party individual who was trying to connect with some of the supporters on this union to have them come out, and the supporters come out and be supportive of the players, which the supporters chose not to engage with that third party for the most part, because it was kind of like, if our players want us to support them in something, they'll talk to us, and we'll go from there. But
of course, unions are a bit of unions are a bit of a touchy subject as well for some people. But I mean, this isn't to cause problems or demand big money. It's like they just want a voice in the league.
Yeah, and protection. You want an organization to look after you and make sure that things are going to be there for you in difficult situations. Which this is a difficult situation, and so. For them, the players mostly all feel better that they have someone who's supporting them in the midst of these difficult conversations that need to happen. Yeah,
I mean, it's the ideal time for it to come out as well. I'm surprised there wasn't one, and there's been some murmurs that the players are not going. They've got to a certain date to agree to this deferment, and a few of the players are saying, no, we won't. And if they don't agree to it, what happens next? And there's been some tweets going out. I believe we were just talking about this before we started recording, that he's walked it back a bit. But Paul Byrne, who was one of the head honchos in the CPL last year, before stepping down and moving on to new projects at the end of the year, had said that the players basically needed to be careful because just now they were the subject of some philanthropy from the league and the owners. And he has walked that back. He said he was wrong to say that in reply to a tweet that squad player Russell Berford had said, saying that he felt Paul Byrne's tone in his tweet was kind of worse than the initial message. Paul Byrne did retweet that and say, yep, the tone was lost. I was just trying to reply to Kurt Larson about something and I didn't mean it in the way that it came out. So, I mean, that was good as well. But, I mean, you wonder Is that a prevalent view amongst some of the owners and the bigwigs of the CPL? And I mean, yes, in a way, the players are benefiting from owners putting their hands in their pocket, having teams probably not making money for a good 5 or 10 years. But at the same time, this is a league launched by the Canadian Soccer Association, whose job it is to provide opportunities for Canadian players, develop the Canadian game, and make all of Canada's soccer system better. So that's not philanthropy, that's their job.
Yeah, this is a difficult one. We just talked about MLS, and these are two very, very different beasts, right? You have this league that's been around for 25 years, which obviously doesn't compare to football around the world or the American sports establishment. But it does have things like expansion fees that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars that are coming into them or have come into them in these last few years that make it hard for you to feel any sympathy for owners who might have to cover more expenditures this year with little to no revenue. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to feel sorry for them or feel anything for them. Whereas the Canadian Premier League is a brand new league, and the owners are, some of them are fairly well off, but they're not all like, these are not billionaires.
Yeah.
That you're dealing with here. They're millionaires or tens of millionaires or whatever the language is for that. But
there's also a vast difference between some of them as well. Some are a lot more well off than others.
Yeah, totally. And so I feel for them. And because this is a Canadian only thing, my understanding is, I heard this recently, so apologies if I'm spreading misinformation or bad information, but my understanding is that when it comes to businesses in Canada, if you can prove that your business has lost greater than 30% of its revenue from the previous year or from whatever, that's how you can get that subsidy that covers 75% of your employees' wages or whatever. So part of me hopes, and so part of me actually wonders if that's what's going on here. If this 25% deferral is the other 25%. They're saying, hey, we're going to get this government money, so you're going to be covered for that. We just want some deferral on this 25% because it's not like these clubs have a lot of cash in hand.
No, right? And they do rely on gates and ticket sales and merchandise sales and sponsors and stuff like that. And we should stress they are just looking for deferment. It's not what MLS are doing and saying that they're wanting to cut the salaries.
Yeah.
The players would hopefully get this if there's a season or if they do qualify for government subsidies. But it's not ideal if we're going to be in year 2 and have the players and the owners already at loggerheads over there being a union. It's just...
And again, just to talk about the difference, right? So this is my understanding. These are not official. I don't think this was ever made official. But my understanding is the CPL wage budget or cap or whatever language you want to use to describe it for players is like a TAM player in MLS, right? My understanding is it's $750,000 roughly for the player roster and $1.25 million for including your coaches and backroom staff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I had something similar, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one MLS TAM player or one MLS TAM player because you can go to 1.5. So the amount is less, but again, the pockets of the owners are not nearly as deep.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'm sure we'll talk in a lot more detail in the coming weeks and months, CPL and MLS, because as I said, it's uncharted territory. We're going into a lot of stuff. We don't know what's going to happen, and we're certainly going to delve a lot more into the players' union aspect in the next couple of weeks. So we've got some interesting stuff lined up about that. That is it for this part of the show. Zach will be joining us again in part 5 to talk about some other stories from around the world and here in North America as well. But we will be back with our first interview of the evening with new Whitecaps player Janio Bikel. And we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Mark Dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Hard when no one trusts you with a credit card. I love the taste of cereal. I have it for almost every meal. 5 people to a tea bag. Well, I've never really got that bad. Not while we still had DC Comics and chocolate milkshake. Some things will always be great. DC Comics and chocolate milkshake. Even though I'm 28. DC Comics and chocolate milkshake. I guess I'm just developing late. DC Comics and chocolate milkshake. I never got over that amazing taste.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show. That was our Artist of the Month for April, Art Brut, with a song from their third album, Art Brut vs. Satan, from 2009. DC Comics and a Chocolate Milkshake, a song we've used before in the show when we played DC United and bring you some audio from those games. And there's going to be a lot of people out there just now that just can't wait to get back out to normality, have some milkshakes, sitting in a nice little cafe, browsing some comic shops and pick up their favourite comics. Soon, hopefully soon. But not too soon. We don't want to rush back to this and come back before we're ready. Everyone just needs to keep doing what they're doing, keep flattening the curve, staying safe, staying healthy, and the sooner we can all do this, the sooner we will get back to doing these normal things. And it's tough times for everyone just now, and can you imagine what it would be like if you had just moved to the country? If you had just come to Vancouver, never been here before, all of a sudden you're in lockdown. Well, that's what it's been like for 3 of the Vancouver Whitecaps players, 3 of their new signings for this year. One of them being 24-year-old midfielder Janio Bikel. Now, Bikel was officially announced as a Whitecaps signing the day before the 2020 season got underway on February 28th, arrived in Vancouver that Saturday, took in the first game at BC Place that lost to Sporting Kansas City, and he wasn't really expected to possibly be playing for a couple of weeks, maybe to get his match fitness up to speed. He was coming off a season over in Bulgaria with CSKA Sofia, so I mean he was fairly fit, but obviously he had to get used to his teammates and just get used to the environment and the league he's in, just get up to the fitness levels of the squad. But a late injury to Jake Nerwinski before the LA Galaxy game meant that the defensive midfielder was forced into action into the position that he classes as his second best position, right back. And what a debut that was down in Carson, California, helping the Whitecaps along the way to a stunning 1-0 victory over the Galaxy, putting in a really good shift, certainly did not look out of place on the pitch. You would not know he had just joined the team the week before and had just met his teammates that week. It was certainly one of the exciting aspects of the first 2 games that we saw from the Whitecaps in 2020. When we did our kind of jokey end of season roundup after that second game, we had Bikel down as being our newcomer of the year, and the flashes that he showed in right back position made you think, wow, he could play right back. I can't wait to see what he does in his natural position as a defensive midfielder. And looking at his highlight reel, he looks a very exciting proposition. He's a guy that's got a lot of experience. He's played for Portugal as well, under 20 and under 19 level, including at the 2015 FIFA World Cup down in New Zealand. He's played his club football in Holland, in Bulgaria, and now in Canada. And his whole footballing journey, it's so interesting. Born in Bissau, in Guinea-Bissau, he sadly lost his father at the age of 11, lost his mum a couple of years later as well. Was taken over to Europe by a soccer agent, initially to Portugal, because Guinea-Bissau was a Portuguese colony until they declared independence in 1973. That agent took him to Portugal, got him trials in Spain. A number of top Spanish clubs were interested, but the deals just never happened, and he ended up going back to Portugal. Then made the move to Holland, impressed in Holland, stayed there for a number of years before kind of losing his starting place, being in and out of the team, coming to the end of his contract, and then making the move over to CSKA Sofia. He's now here in Vancouver. We're delighted to have him here. Really can't wait to see what it's like for him on the pitch. But he's one of these guys that has just moved here, found himself locked down right away before he even gets to know the city, his teammates and everything. It's a very difficult situation for him. But he always has a smile on his face. And I got a chance to chat with Janio this week just about his journey to MLS and a lot more besides. So let's bring you that now. I just kind of wanted to catch up with you and just ask you a couple of things just about your journey to MLS. So, I mean, first thing to ask you, I guess, is really, like, during this time, with everything being shut down, you're not able to play, I mean, you're just new to the city, you're new to the country. How difficult has it been for you to adjust to all this? Because, I mean, you're still getting to know your teammates and you're still new to the city. Has it been quite hard?
Yeah, it's been very hard because I had almost only maybe 2 weeks with almost 2 weeks with my teammates to get to know them. So it's been very hard. And after all this and everything with shutdown, you know, it's very, very hard. But at this time, I'm trying to do what I can, you know, because you can do so much. Talk with family, and also we had these schedules. We do our program at home. Also go outside for running. But this is it's been. I'm still healthy. That's the most important. So I'm doing okay.
Coming to Major League Soccer, what was behind your decision to come here? Because I know you've played in Holland. You were playing in Bulgaria. And, I mean, you're very well travelled. Was it just a chance to have kind of a new adventure, or is it a chance to kind of put yourself in the shop window and maybe use the Whitecaps as a springboard to a bigger move?
Yeah, this is a chance to put myself also on the build, because we know as MLS still is going every year, is going fast. Many players come here. Also, they go to Europe, you know. And I think the level from here is different than where I was playing in Bulgaria. So when they told me about this, I said right away I wanted to go there. I wanted to join this team, so to see a new experience, you know. I want this also. So this decision was easy to make for me.
And at least you managed to get your first game played before the shutdown. I mean, and it was a big game. You're going up against like a big star in the world in Chicharito and a big team in LA Galaxy. How did you find that whole experience? And I mean, you looked very comfortable and very settled right away out there with the team. Yeah,
because you know, I was not gonna play in that day or from that week.
Yeah.
But maybe for not the full game, but maybe last 10 or 20 minutes. Or maybe I could play. But they told me, hey, this is the chance for you, you know. And they saw me some video, you know, just to get to know how the team play, you know, our team. They show me the video and this, and also they show me we talk about the opponent. We talk about them, and they show me some videos. So I say, okay. And they told me, okay. I say, okay, it's okay. I can go. And, this is just a normal game. So normally I'm very calm, so I do my thing. I say, I can do it.
I've had a look into your career, and I read some interviews and watched some videos with you that you've done at your various clubs. So, I mean, going back right to the start, I mean, you were born, obviously, in Guinea-Bissau. And what was it like growing up there? When did you first start playing football, and when did you know that you wanted to be a professional footballer?
Up there, I was born in our neighborhood. It's like, we have also these, all the old people, they love to play football. So I grew up just playing since a kid, playing with friends everywhere. Then it's like a friend of my brother, he told me, hey, it's good if I bring you to the academy, so the football academy. So I was there, they brought me there. Then, they say, okay, one of the best players they're going to have a chance to go to Europe, to play there. So I was one of them.
Yeah, great. I mean, how old were you when you first went to Europe? And did you go to Portugal, or did you end up going to Spain?
Yes, I went to Portugal. I was like 15, I was 15 to 16. I was there, and I went to Portugal and went to do like a test in Spain, in Valencia, in a small club called Torre Levante. So I was there to do tests, so the big clubs, they come to see, they call the clubs to come to see if they have interest. So after that, it was like a two weeks tournament. And after they have some interest from the club, like Malaga, Valencia, Villarreal also. And we didn't, my agent, I don't know what happened, but they didn't agree, with the deal. So I went back to Portugal again, then trained there. And after I flew to Holland.
Yeah.
As a test player also. So I say, okay, if you do well, you're going to stay for 1 week. If we like you, you will stay for, we'll give you a contract. That's what happened. So I was there for 6.5 years.
Yeah. I mean, going to Holland, when you were at Heerenveen, I know Marco van Basten was the first team coach for a little bit of that. How did it feel like being involved? Did you have much involvement with someone like that? He's such a legend of the world game.
Yes, amazing. Because I was there. He was first team coach, and we were like a young player. And after we have also some because we was playing. Then he saw me. Then he asked. He called me to train with the first team. The feeling was amazing. I couldn't believe that. So this is Marco van Basten,
Yeah.
And we start because we supposed to go to training camp with the team in Portugal, and I had an injury there at that moment, so I couldn't go. But it was amazing, He's a legend, and I had also a conversation with him. And also when I was injured, he come talk to me, this thing. It was amazing. The feelings, it was good.
You were at Heerenveen for a few years, and you ended up going to NEC, and I see that you had like 4 different managers at that time. That must have been a very unusual and kind of unsettling time there.
In NSA?
Yeah, NSA, because 4 managers in 4 years is a lot.
Yeah. In 3 years. 4 years, yeah. That was a lot. Yeah, it was good. At first years I came there, and also we were playing, first division first year. It was good. We had a very, very, very interesting team, So make sure that we had a very good team at the moment, and the season was good. Played very well, almost all. Maybe I missed 4 games also in all season.
Then, I mean, ending up in Bulgaria, what took you there, of all places? I know you'd kind of gone in and out of the first team mix at NAC, but I mean, how was it? Just that you wanted to get more regular first team football?
Yes, also because I was there in my third year in NSA. I was not playing like a regular in second division. I said, no, this is impossible. I was playing in the first division almost 2 years, so many games in the first division. Second division, maybe it's not for me. I have to go back, to try to find something to play in the first division. And my contract was also, ending in that time. So I say, okay, it's better for me to go somewhere else also. And then we saw this, offer from Bulgaria. I say, okay, I have to go there. I think it's better if I stay in the first division for the picture, so on the build, to stay on the build. So many clubs, they can see you when it's watching the games. So that was my decision to go there.
And I know you played some Europa League football qualifiers as well with Sofia. So, I mean, you've had a lot of experience playing at different grounds and hostile grounds. And I know Bulgarian football as well, it can be quite hostile there. Of all the places that you've played, what's kind of been your favourite place to go and play at?
To go and play, or where I played.
But both really. It's like because you obviously you played some games in Europe and in different countries as well. Yeah. I mean, what country have you enjoyed playing in the most?
In the most, I would say in England. I
mean, you also 2015. You were down in New Zealand for the FIFA Under-20 World Cup as well with Portugal. How was that whole experience? Yeah. I mean, what was that like playing for your country in a World Cup?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. It's also in another continent. It was, also like here, the time difference was something like this. And when I want to talk to family, then they are sleeping. They could watch the game, but the experience with, we had also a great team with Portugal. Yeah, it was good. Good experience. Another culture there, so yeah, it was good for me.
Would you say that was possibly like the highlight of your career so far?
Yeah, I can say that. But yeah, the experience was good, but that is not so far my highlight. So far was where it was in Holland.
With NAC?
NSA, yes.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, you talked about your family there. I'd read that you lost your dad at an early age and your mum as well.
Yeah.
You've got a brother and sister still in Guinea-Bissau, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you get to keep in touch with them much? Do you think they might come over and see you play over here at some point?
Yeah, I would like that. But we have contact. Almost every week we talk. Also at this time we keep in touch.
How's the coronavirus situation there? I know they were one of the last countries to actually get infected by it.
There is a few cases, but they are doing also they are following the what the experience say about this,
Yeah.
Social distance also, because they are doing also the same.
Last two things for you. Obviously, you've travelled so much, and I know that you obviously speak English and you speak Portuguese and Spanish, and I've seen you do an interview in Dutch. How many languages do you actually speak?
5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 5.
That's fantastic.
My own language, that's Creole.
Okay.
From Guinea-Bissau.
And just the last thing to ask you, Janio, what are you most looking forward to doing once all the lockdowns lifted here? What's the first thing you're really looking forward to getting out and doing?
I can't wait to go back on the pitch. I can't wait to go back. I really missed it. Yeah, I really do miss it. It's been like how many days without ball, you know?
Yeah, it's over a month now.
Yeah, that's too long.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back on the pitch, do what I love.
Well, that's great.
Also to go outside to feel like now I'm free, you know, I can do what I want. I'm safe now. Everything, you know.
Yeah, go and explore the city.
Yeah.
Well, the weather's getting nicer, so hopefully you'll get a chance to do that soon. Thanks so much for your time today, Janio, and look forward to seeing you back on the pitch soon.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, yeah.
You too. Thanks, Janio. Janio Bikel there. Can't wait to see him back on the pitch soon. He certainly can't wait to be back on that pitch. When that will be, that's anyone's guess right now. Hopefully there isn't anything like a player lockout coming because the owners are acting like dicks, as we discussed in the first part of the show there. But one thing we do have to say is the Whitecaps have been really good looking after their players in this time. Guys like Janio as well, because a number of the team know that they're new to the city, they're checking in on them all the time. The Whitecaps are checking in the time, making sure they've got everything they need, make sure they understand how things work here, to do with healthcare and all the government regulations, everything like that. So they have been getting taken good care of. I'm sure some of them are going a little bit stir crazy just now and just can't wait to get back amongst what they know best and what they love doing, which is playing football. So fingers crossed that things can get better to an extent, that at least something happens this season for them. But that is it for this part of the show. We're going to be back after the break with this week's Wavelength and our second interview of the episode with a goal-scoring machine that is Fredy effing Montero. And we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Lucas Cavallini. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
I just write, can't relate to rappers and all that shit. You wanting money, wanting likes, I'm wanting kids and a faithful wife. Cocaine bars is Lindsay like, looking in the mirror like that's life. But Gyro's gone in one mad night, didn't plan it out and there go the lights, no lecky. But bought some bevy, sitting alone waiting for mates to text you. Fear in the news, fame on the telly, rage at machines but do what they tell you. So, back on the bevy, when shouting a lot is a silent help me.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show, and continuing my desire to bring you Scottish rap and hip hop, whether you want to hear it or not. That was this week's contribution from 2017 by an artist we've played several times on the show before, Word SOS. SOS standing for his record label as well, Sons of Scotland. That was a song called On the Rocks, featuring the wonderful haunting vocals of another Scottish singer, Kirsty Innes. Hope you enjoyed that one. Check out all of Word's stuff on Bandcamp, and he's got a new album coming out this year as well. I always like to bring you a little bit of variation from the Edinburgh hip-hop rap scene, just to show you the different sounds that it can have. In saying that, we'll probably be back to Mad Hat McGore next week. Another regular on the show. And you know what else is a regular on the show? Wavelength. And if you're a new listener to the show, just to explain, Wavelength is our part of the show where we play you a song by a band about football. Could be about a footballer, could be about a team, could just be about the game itself. Sometimes we feature songs by footballers. Sometimes we feature songs from football teams. FA Cup singles, World Cup singles, things like that. This week we're going back to 2012 and a song from English singer-songwriter Frank Hamilton. The London-based indie star had a project in 2012 where he did a song a week. 52 songs over the year released. A very prolific project. A best of which was released as an album as well. Now, one of those songs in 2012 was called Football, and it was a collaboration with the London grime artist Lyricist. I thought that was a good song to pick for this week because Janio Bikel said he just wants to play football. I want to play football. Everyone wants to play football. And so does Frank Hamilton. This is Football.
I want to play football. I want to play football. All the money in the world. All the goals and all the girls. I want to play football. I want to play football. 'Cause I can run away from anything. I can kick, I kick off when I'm drunk. I can I chip away at lots of things. Use my head to take on anyone. I wanna play football. I wanna play football. All the money in the world. All the goals and all the girls. I wanna play football. I wanna play football. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. I can pass the buck to anyone. I can shout the loudest in the ground. I'm on side even when the game is done. I can shoot but I won't shoot you down. I wanna play football. I wanna play football. All the money in the world. All the goals and all the girls. I wanna play football.
Yeah.
I wanna play football.
The ironical thing about this is I used to play football as a little kid. True story, my glory. I remember this one chick named Doreen. I used to train on a Friday night and meet her after practice for a Friday pint. Remember when we used to travel to the Isle of Wight and reminisce? We got married, walked down the aisle like I don't deserve her, Lord help me. I wonder if Arsenal beat Chelsea. This must be a fake ass dream, cause it seems my dream girl's in a fashion magazine. All the roads to riches and diamond rings won't bring my girl back, that's the funniest thing. And I was never good enough, wasn't the type of lad that was good with trust, so
I was never good enough.
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 I was never good.
I was never good enough.
Nah.
I was never good enough.
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 I was never good.
I was
good.
Yeah. I wanna play football.
I wanna play football.
I wanna play football.
I said I wanna play football.
All the money in the world.
And all the money in the world.
All the goals and all the
and
girls.
all the goals and the girls.
I wanna play football.
Yeah.
I wanna play football. Nah.
Yes.
Na 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 na.
Woo.
Na 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 na.
Yes.
Na 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 na.
1, 2.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Frank Howard.
Na 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 na.
So crazy.
Na 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 na.
One song a week.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
That's why we have love. Football.
London singer-songwriter Frank Hamilton there with a song from 2012 and his One Song a Week project. That was Football. Hope you enjoyed that. A little bit more mellow than our usual punk songs that we feature in the Wavelength section, and I've got another nice mellow melodic song coming up in next week's show. But now let's get back to the actual football chat, and it's the latest in our feature that I really enjoy doing. Our in-depth sit-down interview with Whitecaps players about their careers, looking at their career highlights, their debuts, their first memories of the game, their first goals, their first professional goal, This time's allowed us to sit down with a couple of the guys to have these chats, and this week it's the turn of Colombian striker Fredy effing Montero. As we look back on Fredy's career with him, starting off on Colombia, making the move to MLS with Seattle, went over to Europe to play for Sporting Lisbon, went to China, came to Vancouver, went back to Lisbon, and now back here in Canada with Vancouver. What have been his highlights? What are his favourite memories? And what does the future hold in store? We're going to discuss all that and more over the next 2 parts of the show. So sit back, grab your favourite hot beverage, obviously it should be a Santo coffee, open your new pack of chocolate digestives, and listen to Fredy Montero's Football Firsts. You've had such an interesting and varied career in football. I mean, going way back to the very beginning. Like, what are your first memories of playing football in Colombia? And when did you know that you wanted to be a professional footballer? And like, when did you start playing? Did you go to many games as a fan?
Well, I remember I used to play just for fun. When I was 10, 11, 12, it was super fun for me just to get together with my friends from the soccer academy, play some tournaments, score goals, and win some trophies. But then at the age of 13, it was a scout from Deportivo Cali that was talking to my parents, and right after that conversation that they had, I asked my parents what was that about. And they say, they would like you to go to Cali to, join Deportivo Cali's academy. And I realized that they were serious after, a few other phone calls that I sneak and I listened to them when they were talking. And I would say that at that moment I realized that I was going to pursue my dream as a professional soccer player in Colombia.
I know, like, when you were with Cali to start with, you got loaned out initially, like a lot of young guys do, to like Academia and Atletica Hula or something. My pronunciation's going to be terrible during this, but what do you remember of like your very first game as a professional footballer?
My very first game, I remember that in Colombia, in those days, we have like a regulation for every single professional team that they were forced to play 2 young players under 20 years old. So every single team had to do that. So the last game of the season in 2006, I believe so. 2005, I think. The Deportivo Cali was already out of the competition for the playoffs. So the last game was, just to play for the calendar. That's it. And that didn't have any meaning. I think I got the opportunity. It was more like a reward because on my I was playing for the under 20 squad, and I was the goal scorer in that tournament. I was the best player of that tournament, so I got a reward of the last game of the professional soccer league to play. And I remember I only played 45 minutes, the first 45. I was running opposite of the ball. But the ball was going to the left, and I tried to, just hide behind the defenders because I was so afraid to touch the ball. And it was happening. I was already playing professional football, which I wasn't expecting to happen that soon.
And, I mean, you did so well at Cali and you really impressed there. And it saw you getting called up to Colombia's national team for a few games. And You made your debut in a friendly, a 4-0 win over Panama on May 9th, 2007, coming on as a late sub. What do you remember of that game, and what did it mean to you to be representing your country?
Yeah, that was an amazing feeling. I was the top scorer in the Colombia professional league, and I got called to national team at the age of 19, which I never was part of any other Colombia national team, like under 20, under 17, under 15, nothing. And I was blessed enough to just go directly to the main national team, Colombian, the first squad. And for me, it was a dream come true. I still keep that jersey at my parents' house because it was like a game changer for me.
I mean, you made, I think, 4 or 5 appearances for Colombia. Considering how well you've done in your career at Seattle and over at Sporting, were you surprised that you didn't get more caps for the national team?
Yeah, I made 4 and I scored 1 goal. I remember playing in Catalonia against Catalonia national team. And I scored my first and only goal for Colombia. And after my move to the MLS, I remember all the news and all the journalists back in Colombia, they were saying that MLS didn't have a level, it wasn't competitive enough for me to be a part of the national team, where Colombia has players in Mexico, Argentina, Europe in those days, and I simply give up my dreams of playing for Colombian national team because I signed a contract with MLS, and it was obviously for me was disappointed because as a soccer player, you come to MLS and you think that's not real. But yeah, that was I would say that was the reason that I didn't get to go back to the national team anymore.
I know when you signed for Seattle, there was lots of talk at the time that there was possible clubs in Europe that were interested in you and various things like that. What made you decide to come to MLS in the end?
In the end, I remember meeting Seattle Sounders at Hanover and the owners, obviously, and I knew that they were 100% supporting the move. While I have another offers, but they were just rumors. We didn't have anything on paper, and the club decided, this is good for us. This is good for you, Fredy, and yeah, let's go ahead and sign it. And back in the days, I didn't have, that much saying. I just signed the contract and we made the move.
And I mean, it couldn't have got off to a better start, scoring the Sounders' first ever goal in MLS, and you got 2 goals and an assist in that first ever match in the 3-0 win over Red Bulls. But when you look back at that time, I mean, that's something you've gone down in the club's folklore. It's like there'll never ever be another player that scored a first MLS goal for the team than you. When you look back at that day in particular, what's your memories of that all these years later?
We were like 2 months doing the preseason. A bunch of new players. Obviously, I didn't speak the language, didn't understand the language, but we have many other players that were helping us and coaches that they were bilingual and they were helping us. And playing those friendly games were like nothing compared with the first game. Just walking into the field, listening to the American anthem, all the fireworks, people making a lot of noises. It was like I would say like a dream come true. I wanted to play outside of Colombia, and that was the day.
I was looking at your record. You seem to, you've scored so many times on your debut. You scored for your debut for Seattle. You scored for your debut when you went back to Colombia with Millonarios. And then you scored on your debut for Sporting as well. And what is it about those debut games that seems to bring the best out of you?
And I scored both here in Vancouver when I had my debut as well. I would say I'm blessed. God is always taking care of me. I would say that I'm being honest in every single team that I go to play. I give my best pre-season, and then when the official game is going to be played, I am ready. And it's if you ask every single soccer player if they want to score in debut, 99% of them they will say yes. And I had that opportunity. It happened to me in North America, in Europe, in Canada, in South America. So it's been exciting, be able to move around the world, but knowing that my talent is always carrying me and my image as a soccer player.
Now, when you left Seattle, you went back to Colombia briefly with Millonarios in 2013 before making the move in the summer to Sporting. Were you always expecting to make that move to Europe, or did you want to see if you wanted to go back and play in Colombia full time?
Yeah, it was on my mind to move to Europe, but before that, I had a good opportunity to play Copa Libertadores, which is the most difficult and international tournament in South America. And after Champions League, I would say that's the tournament that has more prestige in soccer and on club level, obviously. And I used that move to play, enjoy, and be able to compete at the highest level in South America. And then I had that contract on my hands to sign with Sporting, which is I would say that all these years in Seattle, all these years in Colombia, I was getting prepared to finally jump the ocean and go to play in Europe.
Good stuff from Fredy there. We'll be back talking about the latter part of his career so far, including his time here in Vancouver and what the future could hold in store. That's coming up in the next part, and we'll be back with that right after this.
Hi, I'm Marcel de Jong, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show. That was Colombian Necktie from Illinois hardcore punk band Big Black from their 1987 album Songs About, let's go with fornicating, but it's actually another F word, but I don't want to have to mark this whole episode explicit just for saying that. Played that song a couple of times before, usually as an introduction to when we're chatting to Fredy Montero, so I thought why not play a little extended version of it as we bring you back to part 4 and the second part of our sit-down chat with Fredy Montero. So we finished part one there, Fredy, just talking about the move to Europe. So that happened in the summer of 2013. Initially still on loan from Seattle Sounders, heading over to Portugal, to Sporting Lisbon. And it was a fantastic debut. August 18th, 2013, you got a hat-trick in a 5-1 win over Arouca. I mean, it was a dream start for you. When you look back to making that adjustment to European football, did you find it quite easy? And what do you remember of that first game?
First game, I remember we started losing 1-0. The coach made a substitution at 20 minutes, and everybody started panicking, including me. I said, "Oh, I can't believe that this is happening. This is Europe. You know, it doesn't matter what player you are." The first substitution was our guy that was wearing the number 10 jersey. So imagine that. So at 20 minutes, we were losing 1-0. That was a message from the coach that we have to, keep pushing and step up in the game. And then I scored the 1-1, and luckily for us, we start playing good. Ending the game with 3 goals, it was a whole other level. I would say I was, talking to my teammates right after. Everybody was congratulating me. But honestly, I would say that was a miracle. It was something that came from heaven, because I wasn't expecting 3 goals. As I said before, any soccer player would like a debut with a goal or an assist at least. But scoring 3 goals, that was another level.
And a couple of weeks after your debut there as well, you scored in your first ever Lisbon derby against Benfica. What were those games like? I mean, you've always done well in derby games over here, whether it's Seattle-Portland, whether it's Vancouver against Seattle or Vancouver against Portland. You've always done well in derby games, but how did that atmosphere in Lisbon for that derby compare to any other derby that you've been a part of?
Wow. I would say that's the biggest derby that I've been a part in my career. It was 1 week talking about Benfica and Sporting. It was 1 week about the details of the team. It was 1 week about knowing that the city was going to be or red or green. Especially in Europe, when teams are ready to play these games, the fans are ready as well. And they know about the game. They know when the team is playing good. They know when the team is playing not good. And for us, it was a big opportunity to show that this new team, which Sporting have in that tournament, was ready to fight against, Benfica, which was the last champion, and Portugal. They were really good teams in Europe, in Champions League. And we were young players with a lot of energy, hungry of showing people that we are the same level as Benfica and Porto. And it's the energy from the fans that are, making you run 10% extra and now giving you 100%, but 110. And at the end of the game, we ended up missing the 3 points in the last 5 minutes, I believe so, when Benfica tied the game.
Yeah, whenever I've seen any of those games, the atmosphere looks amazing. When you left Lisbon and you went to China in 2016, obviously that was a time when the Chinese Super League they were splashing a crazy amount of money out on transfer fees, on players' wages and everything like that. You got 9 goals in 30 games there. How did you find that whole experience? And was it the chance to try something different that appealed? I mean, obviously I know money aspect came into it as well, but the whole experience of playing there, how did you find that?
Yeah, China was something special and different. Obviously, as you say, money-wise, it was the best opportunity for me and my family. I couldn't reject that. But coming from Sporting of Lisbon or Portugal, fighting for the title, fighting for part in the Champions League, in Europe League, and then going to China for a team that is, after 5 games, we were playing for relegation. And then during the whole tournament, we were like last bottom of the table, second. And then it was so difficult, the pressure that you feel when you have to play the last game of the season. And if you don't win that game, you're going to go to second division, and then it's going to be a disaster because you are a player that is called, to add to the team. But I would say that we won the last game. We stayed, or the team stayed in the first league. But it was a tough year in soccer for me. But outside of the soccer, my family and I enjoyed China as we had no idea before. China was special for us. My daughters, they were young, and they were in that part of their life where everything was new and exciting for them, and the food, Asian food, that was really good for them. And yeah, even though we don't speak the language, we had a really good time outside of the soccer.
And at the end of that season, obviously you came back then in 2017 to MLS with Vancouver. Did you always think you would end up back in Major League Soccer at some point, or did it come as a little bit of a surprise to you?
It was like, I was in Europe playing high level. It was pretty much like every 3 days we have a match, and we have to get together in the hotel or the sporting facility. And it was like being apart for a while with the family, and then going to China, being with the family, but also not enjoying 100% that level of the game. And then I had a call to go back to MLS, and I say, well, that's the right time, I was needing this. I know MLS. I know in MLS I can enjoy family, I can enjoy the game, and we're going to be close to our family. So why not? I'm always looking forward to be close to our family and playing for MLS.
Did you have any sort of qualms, though, about joining like one of Seattle's rivals? I know you'd been away from Seattle for quite a while by that point, but I mean, did you have at any point any second thoughts of maybe I shouldn't join Vancouver because they're a rival? I know it's different here. The rivalries aren't as crazy. They're not as intense as they are, say, in Europe or South America. But did that cross your mind at all?
Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah, of course. And then talking to my good friend Mauricio, which I have a lot of respect, for his career. He's been playing high level for many years, and he was playing in Seattle with me, and then he played as well in Vancouver. So obviously I got his advice, and all my doubts were clear when after I talked with him. Vancouver is not a big rival with Seattle as it is Portland.
And I mean, you had the 1 year here, then ended up going back to Sporting for another year. And of course, when you were there in 2018, it was when it was that crazy time when the fans stormed the training facility. I mean, when you look back on that, a couple of years have passed since then. Does it still seem crazy that even happened? And I mean, how scary was that?
Yeah, super scary. As I said before, being able to be in peace, to have joy, playing games in MLS, and then at the age of 30, 31, I would say that a top team in Europe is asking you to come back to sign a 3-year deal, and I say, okay, wow, of course. And then suddenly half of the time, because we didn't make a Champions League spot, the reaction of the fans, coming into the training facility, locking us into the locker room, throwing these smoke bombs. They were covering their faces. It was panic. Players running, getting beat. I got beat as well. I got a slap in my face. a few times, and I didn't know. I couldn't understand what was happening. All the players were bleeding, like garbage can flying from left to the right. It was like a battle inside a locker room, which for us, it should be, the safest place for a soccer player, I would say, because we go there every day.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was all over the news. It was at, international news where obviously it wasn't good for the game of soccer. And I would say like 10 days after we have a final, we couldn't train as a team. And then on the day of the final, we saw these police like around the field, the soccer field, like they were ready to battle, and it was like tricky for your mind. You are playing to have fun, but you're in that moment you think you're playing just to be alive. If we didn't win that game, something bad was going to happen. Well, we didn't win the game. Police scored us out as well with the best that they could, and after that, that's when all this activity in your mind or the city start happening, and we start thinking, if that happen again, I don't want to be there. And after that, it's always like we were looking to get another opportunity, and that's when the 2 years deal with Vancouver came up, and we decided to get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're certainly glad that you're here. I mean, you've still got quite a few years of your career left in you. What would you like to achieve in the last couple of years of your career? What kind of personal goals would you like to achieve?
Obviously, I've been winning titles in the teams that I've been playing. That the teams that play to win, right?
Yeah.
And that's a sensation that is really good. And that's what I would like to bring back in my career. 2 years ago, I in the sporting locker room, I was the guy with most titles of that jersey. And that it seems different, like all the other players, they look after you because winning is not easy. And yeah, I would like to win trophies before I finish my career, and that's something that I keep working and thinking and praying. I still can make it happen.
And just the very last thing, obviously it's really weird times just now. Everyone's just hoping to get back to some kind of normality soon. But for someone like yourself and your family, because you've got close connections to Seattle, you've got your business down there, your wife's family's down there. I mean, this must just be a really tough time because you can't get over the border. How are you and your family coping with all this just now?
Yeah, it's been tough. The business has been closed 3 weeks now. It's really hard. Family is in quarantine in Seattle, talking to them almost daily, knowing that they are doing really good. Thank God they are safe, they are healthy. And I try to do the same here with my family, my wife and kids, trying to every day find a different activity for my girls. My wife and I creating more memories together as a parent. Never less. I would say that physical activity is important, but for us it's about being healthy and praying that every day those people that go to work they are safe and I don't know, sooner they will find this vaccination that is going to allow us to go back to the normal life.
And I mean, if MLS did start and there was like closed doors games and no fans there, as a player, how would you feel playing in those kind of situations?
Well, I would feel good, honestly. It's not about, and this is the thing that we should be more, think about other people. Stop being selfish. Yes, it may be a little different as a professional soccer player, but it's what we need at this moment. And I'm here to support, to be a part of the solution and not use that as an excuse and move forward from it. But if we have to play with no fans, we know it's going to be just temporary until things get better.
That's great. Thanks so much for your time today, Fredy. Hope you and your family continue to stay safe, and hopefully we'll get to see you in person on the training pitch soon. Thanks so much.
Yeah, hopefully. No, thank you. Stay safe, okay?
Fredy is a man in a class. We want Fredy for our leader. Boosters, raise your champagne glass.
It was great catching up with Fredy again there. Hope you enjoyed that career retrospective with him. He's had such a varied career, scored goals everywhere he's went, and I still, as I said, I still feel that he can be a guy that can do a job here for Vancouver. And if you've got a season where you're going to be trying to cram in as many games in as short a time as possible, you need to have some depth on that team. And with a guy with his record in MLS like Montero, I mean, that's a great addition for the Whitecaps to have in such a situation like that. I thought it was also interesting as well just to talk about him coming up through the ranks in Colombia and then making the move to MLS. And of course, the scary, scary time that was when the fans invaded the Sporting Lisbon locker room. I mean, looking back on that and just hearing Fredy talking about it, certainly a scary situation. And I mean, I'm all for passion in football, but you don't do that to your own team's players. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace. And how they managed to get away with that and invade that locker room, it's baffling to think about. And it could really have gone a lot worse. And it's like, no wonder players like Fredy ended up leaving the club, because you don't want to be living in fear. But I mean, it was good to hear him speaking so open and frank about it. It's certainly going to be tough for him and his family not being able to get over the border right now. And as he said, his business has been closed now for a couple of weeks. Hopefully it's going to be able to reopen. I know he had hopes of expanding to having a second or third coffee shop at some point, as we talked about when we spoke to Fredy before. So wish him and his family well. As I said, hope to see him back on the training pitch soon. And of course, players that we are seeing on the pitch right now are in the Belarusian Premier League, which means it's time to round off this part with our weekly FK Slutsk update.
We love our Slutsk, the greatest team in Belarus.
And what a weekend it has been for our beloved Slutsk. They were in action on Friday against local rivals Shakhtar Soligorsk, and an absolutely fantastic match. Shakhtar had the early going, but Yuri Kozlov scored in the 25th minute a fantastic free kick. Bit of luck, floated in from 40 yards out, bounced in the box, everyone left it, including the Shakhtar goalkeeper, ended up in the back of the net, 1-0 to the Slutsk. And they doubled that advantage in first half stoppage time. 2 minutes in, Kozlov again, playing in Umar Bala Mohammed, and some great individual work by the Nigerian. Showed some great footwork, slotted it into the bottom corner, 2-0 at half time, Slutsk in dreamland. Could they hold on? Well, it looked for a while that dream was going to turn into a nightmare when Denis Obrazov saw a second yellow, got sent off for a handball in the box. Bit of a harsh decision by the referee, I felt. Double whammy for Slutsk. Obrazov sent off, penalty to Shakhtar. Up stepped Darko Bodil, only to be denied by the fantastic Boriv Pankratov. Slutsk kept their 2-0 lead. Surely they would hold on now. Well, I mean, they did really well. They held everything that Shakhtar threw at them, and to be fair, Shakhtar's finishing was pretty woeful in this one. But then in the 89th minute, Shakhtar got on the score sheet. Bit of luck to a deflection off Soleimani Kouanda, who's a fantastic centre-back for Slutsk, and I really wouldn't mind if the Whitecaps took a look at him. Burkina Faso native. Unfortunately, the ball hit off him, deflected into the net, 2-1. And then it was squeaky bum time for Slutsk. Pankratov coming off with a fantastic save in stoppage time to keep their lead intact, earning the 3 points, and that sent Sluts to the top of the table on Friday night. They started the weekend in 4th. The 3 teams above them were going to be in action on Saturday night. None of them could get the win. FK Sluts finished the weekend top of the table. Come on, you Sluts. The boys in blue are top of the league. Let's hope they can stay there. But that is it for this part of the show. We're going to be back with the final part of tonight's show, which this week won't include the start of our new episodic serial. Hadn't quite nailed down which one I wanted to do yet. So we're going to bring you a little bit of a fun piece looking at some of Mark DeSantis' favourite TV programmes and documentaries, and some more news stories from North America in BC Soccer Web headlines. And we'll be back with all that after this.
This is Atiba Hutchinson, and you're listening to the AFTN Show.
Out the basement. Who's that? The ties on the deck by the face. Take it out. Despicable rhymes off the basement. Out the basement. Let's go. Out the basement. Who's that? The ties on the deck by the face. Take it out. Despicable rhymes off the basement. Out the basement. One mic, one pound. This is how we began. No money, no gear, but it's never been a problem. From the day one, we run with the same plan. Spread the world around with a mic and a spray can. Everywhere we get, from the coast to commuter cars. Stories of the past, full blast, they leave scars. Times we can't be enough, and we never pretend. But kind of groove through friends, by side to the end. Living on the road, this fan is a pirate boat. Smash my ski to beat, reload, till your head explode. Music for the games, misfits, surviving by the code of unity, respect, raising up against the whole world. Guys about the critics, deceivers, the non-believers. All these keep speeding lyrics, all the elites deliver. I can't play it, hard to spend it love. Having fun to come apart, all the story is cause only begun. Out the basement. Who's that? The ties on the deck by the face. Take it out. My despicable rhymes off the basement. Out the basement.
Welcome back to the final part of tonight's AFTN Soccer Show. And it's not just Scottish rap we bring you. That was some Russian hardcore punk and hip hop from a band called Moscow Death Brigade and their new single that's out the Basement. A band I had never heard of until a couple of weeks ago, but when I was on one of my YouTube binges that I like to do late at night, just clicking on recommended videos or trying to kind of set up a little pattern of videos that link into each other, that was one of the recommendations. I immediately fell in love with them, watched loads of their videos, and they're a great band. Check them out. And binging on YouTube videos has always been a way that I find myself losing hours at night sometimes. After my wife's gone to bed, I'm just like playing around watching one video after another. It's certainly a great way to occupy your time with no live sports on TV just now. Now I'm sure we're all finding some weird and wonderful ways to keep busy right now. I'm still feasting on lots of things that I've downloaded and trying to catch up with some shows and watching the PDC Darts at Home that started on Friday and is going to be running for the next 30 days. Live sport on DAZN. If you haven't got DAZN, you can also get it on the PDC official website. It's free to register and watch the matches on that. I've got a pile of books I'm hoping to catch up with as well. It's strange. There's no football to go to. There's no training to go to. I've currently got no non-football work to go to. And yet, despite it all, I've never been busier here at AFTN. We're trying to keep things going with a few articles a week on the site. Every sort of day or second day, we hope to have something up on the site. Been jumping on a lot of conference calls and just getting stuff ready for these shows as well. And of course, the likes of Netflix and Prime, Disney Plus, it's something that's occupying a lot of people's attentions just now. And there's a lot of good football content out there. We've talked about some of it on the show. We've written a little bit about it on the site. We've got some more articles to come. But I always find it interesting to find out what the players and coaches and the Whitecaps and around the league are doing to occupy their time away from keeping fit. I mean, just what is Whitecaps coach Mark DeSantis doing just now to occupy his time? Well, let's find out in our latest TVOD.
TVOD, TVOD, TVOD.
Talked about that you were like watching some Netflix stuff and sort of football things. I've been doing a piece on some of my favourite kind of football movies. And I don't know how many of those you've seen over the years, but I mean, is there any films about the game out there that you love to watch or that you want to watch?
The things I watch more about
watcher that I watch a lot of games, so that takes away the time I could have watching movies or documentaries. But I would say that I watch more documentaries, example like Boca Junior Confidential or The All or Nothing, or the documentary about France at the 98 World Cup. It's in French, called Les Yeux dans les Bleus. Those are documentaries and series that I like watching. But when we talk about football movies, the one that I really enjoyed watching was the Damn United.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic, and to have I would love to be close to a coach like that. I really liked the movie on Bobby Robson's story. I think it was the story of Bobby Robson is incredibly motivating, and what a good man he was and a good coach. So those are the two football movies that I really enjoyed. Of course, the class of '92 was a fantastic one too. I liked One Night in Turin, also from the English national team at the Italian World Cup. Lately, I watched the movie of Maradona. I was incredibly impressed from his lifestyle at Napoli. So, yeah, I've watched some of them, and I like to watch. But of course, when I'm in season, I get caught watching so many games that it's more the time of watching movies that is difficult for me.
TVOD. I don't need a TV screen. I just stick the aerial into my skin and let the signal run through my veins. TVOD.
Marc Dos Santos there, talking about some of the football films and documentaries that's been occupying his time during the current shutdown. Let us know what you've been watching as well. Send us a tweet at AFTN Canada or send us an email to aftncanada@hotmail.com. We've got some more articles coming up on the site recommending some of our favourite football-related TV shows and films and documentaries, so we'll have those coming up in the next little while for you. But now, to end tonight's show, it's time for BC's Soccer Web Headlines. BC Soccer Web Headlines is brought to you in partnership with bcsoccerweb.com, your one-stop site for local, national and international news, links, stories, features and a lot more beside. Make it part of your daily routine, morning, noon and night. Check out bcsoccerweb.com. What's been catching my eye on the site this week and elsewhere around the interwebs? So joining us for BC Soccer Web Headlines this week once again is Zach. So we'll get into some of we've got 3 stories we want to look at this week. All of them actually are kind of MLS related. And the first one we'll look at, it's in Mexico. Liga MX announced this week that they will have no promotion and relegation between the top 2 divisions for the next 5 years. All the details have still to get thrashed out. It looks as if the clubs in Division 2 will receive a payment of around $2 million. There's even been talk that they're going to turn that into a developmental league for the under-23 teams of the top teams. But it means clubs that's in Division 2 just now, that's got any ambition, they're stuck where they are for 5 years. Teams now in Division 1 of Liga MX, they've got a little bit of security because there had been some money issues in the league. And some folk, at least, want promotion relegation in MLS and in North American leagues, the CPL, if they can set up divisions. Liga MX is often pointed to as the league on the continent where that can happen. Now, you've got that league coming out and saying, nope, we're going to follow what MLS do. We're not having promotion relegation. And I think it's a surprise. I think it's a wrong step. And you have to wonder what this might mean just for football on the continent as a whole. And will this throw up the discussions again of Liga MX and MLS joining forces for a combined league?
Please no. Is there something that instigated this? Like, what's the catalyst?
Basically, money issues. Obviously, it's a concern of the top flight. The cellar dwellers of the top flight not wanting to lose money by going down. Yeah.
Is there anything else? Did something else happen?
Not that I've read. It just seems to be that they think that they need to just stabilise the league. I mean, the English Premier League, there was rumours last year that some of the clubs were looking at going for a closed shop and no promotion, relegation and that. And, of course, clubs that's then in the Premier League that risk relegation, they would vote for that and go, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. So I think MLS is criticised by a lot of people for not having it, but there's other leagues around the world that look at that and owners around the world that think, you know what, this is actually a good system because it gives us some security. No matter how bad a year we have, we'll not get relegated. And the Atlas owner came out today or yesterday and was talking about he thinks this is another chance to look at having a closer working relationship with MLS, whatever that could mean. And, I mean, you could be looking at having a combined league. And then if there was such a thing, clubs like the Whitecaps are obviously not going to be in the top flight in there. So, I mean, what's the appetite for clubs like the Whitecaps playing lower league Mexican opposition or just playing in the dregs of MLS? And you have to think amongst the fans, maybe not huge.
Yeah, I mean, promotion and relegation is such a great thing for the sport of football in terms of just the competitiveness of the competitive elements it adds to the leagues that have it, which is most of the world.
Yeah.
And so those who followed football from places that are not MLS have, I think, really come to appreciate and see the value in it. Yes. Does this impact you financially? Yes. Just like being like last place in a North American league impacts you financially. Obviously, probably not as bad, but still impacts you financially, right? Ask the Whitecaps. They were awful last year, last in their conference and their season tickets. I mean, there's other things going on, obviously, but
yeah. And you miss out on playoff revenue from TV and gates and stuff as well. So there's that.
Yeah. But promotion and relegation is the only thing I like about promotion and relegation is when you look around the world, it's not only done one way, right? It's done differently in Germany than it is in England. It's done differently in Holland than it is there. Even where you come from, Scotland, right? The way the league splits at the end, right? There's all kinds of ways that you can do this to make it engaging and competitive and whatever. The biggest problem is what we've had a conversation earlier about expansion fees and how critical they are to making MLS viable, right? The pyramid scheme, right? It is what's kind of the glue that's holding the league together. And so they would have to have some hard discussions. They'd have to do something. They'd have to do something the reverse of what is being done in Mexico, where they say, "Hey, everyone's in, and then 5 years from now, we're going towards this." For it to happen in like an MLS context. I love what the CPL has done. It said, "Hey, we're starting off. We're new. We're small. Hey, just so you know, long term, our plan is we like how this works in the rest of the world, and that's what we're aiming for." So everyone's safe now. Owners are safe for now, right? But everyone knows it's a long-term goal. This thing, I haven't looked at the Mexican table from first to second division and stuff. I mean, I haven't looked at second division Mexico since Johnny Leveron was playing there a while ago. So I wonder if they're just at a sweet spot where they think all the big clubs are in the right league and
probably
close the door. When we talk about there's different ways to do it, I remember Mexico might be similar. In Brazil years ago, or Argentina, or both of them, there was like some convoluted relegation thing where it was like not if you finished last this year. There was an element of like, how did you do over the last 3 years or 5 years.
Yeah, because I think it was Argentina. Some big team finished in the relegation spot, and they're like, "Oh, we can't get them relegated."
Yeah, so I think they changed it because of that or whatever. And then in Scotland, right? You have even in Scotland, you've had your issues over. Hey, we're not going to promote you because you don't have a big enough ground.
Yep.
Right. So there's all other kind of ways you can keep people out or keep people down or keep people up or whatever. But this is sad news to me that Mexico is doing this or considering this or whatever. Because ultimately, I think for the betterment of the competitions, you want it to go the other way. I literally just got a text today from a buddy from Curva Collective, Jeremy McBride, just saying, "Hey, I just watched Sunderland Till I Die." So, like, have you watched it? What did you think about, like when you watch that, especially the first season, right? When you watch that, it's sad and depressing, but it's also, there's something about the competition and the way that things go and the way that there's more meaningful games, at the end of the season for more teams. I don't know. I think long term, it's a good way to go.
As a supporter of a lower league team in Scotland, if you don't have promotion and relegation, it's like, what's the point? Yeah. Because your team can only go to a certain level, so what's the point? I've been involved in last day promotions and last day relegations, and just the roller coaster of emotions on those days. I mean, it's horrible in a way to be part of a game like that because so much is on the line, but it's so exhilarating. And I mean, the two guys we've spoken to on the show, Janio Bikel, he was involved in a relegation battle and got relegated in Holland. Fredy Montero was just talking about how he was involved in a relegation battle in China and they stayed up on the last day. Like, for a player, they thrive and stuff like that as well. That's an experience that they talk about when you're looking at their career. It's like they highlight that as, "Oh, I remember this, that was a great thing," or "Oh, I remember that was a bad thing."
Yeah,
and
totally.
Taking that away from all those players and all the supporters, I mean, I feel so much for supporters of the Division 2 teams who go and religiously follow their clubs, and it's like their dream is to get into the top flight, to maybe go and play against a Tigres or an Atlas or a Leon or one of those sides, and it's like now it's just taken away from them, and it's like, well, this is it. This is what we're stuck with for 5 years, and it's at least 5 years. It's not even just 5 years, it's at least 5 years.
And this is a done deal, right? Like,
yeah, it's all done. And interestingly, it takes them up basically to the 2026 World Cup. And everyone's talking about, oh, that's going to change the landscape of North American soccer. And I genuinely now think it does. And I think after the World Cup, I think we will see a combined Liga MX, MLS. I just think more eyes will be on the continent and they'll be able to attract more players if they have a combined league like that. I'm not saying it's a great thing. It would be exciting if your team is involved in the top flight. But for a club like Vancouver, I don't know. I mean, you have some fun away days, but if you were never getting promoted, if you were stuck in the lower tiers or whatever, it would soon get a bit boring.
Yeah.
I mean, already in MLS, it's like if you're not in the playoff picture, the end of the season's pretty boring.
Yep.
So, I mean, who knows what the future will hold in store. I can't see any way, though, that we don't have a combined league at some point. Unless FIFA step in and say, nope, you can't have a league that transgresses 3 countries, because then that opens the door for European Super Leagues, which is something that I'm pretty sure FIFA don't want. UEFA certainly...
to stop that.
Yeah, UEFA definitely want it. I look back to when I was growing up, and like football in the 70s and 80s, it's unrecognisable in a number of ways. Not all bad. I mean, some of it's fantastic, how it's changed, but you wonder 2030, 2040, what the world game is going to look like. And I mean, that's something we did it once. We did a kind of what the future is going to look like thing in a spoof kind of way.
Oh, yeah.
But it might be fun to sit down one day and have a podcast just chatting about that to various people as to what they think football will look like in 2030.
That would be enjoyable.
Moving on to our second story, staying in MLS. Seattle Times ran a story today, which is Sunday the 19th of April, looking at the decision and what went behind the decision for the Sounders to play their home opener on March 7th. We talked about it on the show at the time. I was really surprised that the Sounders went ahead with that game, considering all the coronavirus outbreaks that had hit King County and round about Seattle.
Yeah.
They got a crowd of around 33,000 for it. I thought it was 36, but the article said 33,000. I mean, you'd remarked that that's probably lower than usual. The article said that folk were surprised it was so many. And then it details all the emails that went back and forward behind the decision, and it just does not paint anyone in a good light. It's playing the whole, oh, we didn't know what we know now card, which to an extent is true, but so much of it was very predictable about how this was going to go when you saw how this had gone in other countries. That to pack that amount of people into a stadium in an area that's already starting to get hit with the virus, I mean, it was baffling at the time. Reading this, it's going to be interesting to see how Seattle fans react to it, because in the article it's even like, hey, Seattle came out to support. Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's a very kind of damning article, right? Like, stuff that's come out now in terms of how they were, the chief medical officer or whatever kind of didn't want it to happen, but maybe wasn't firm enough or whatever, and allowed people to make decisions. Right? Is that fair to say?
I mean, a lot of the article seems to point fingers at the Sounders, which I would actually say, if you say to a football club, oh, it's up to you, most football clubs are going to go ahead.
Totally.
It needs the officials in King County and Washington State to say, no, we think this is a stupid idea, especially since we're outlawing gatherings of more than 50.
Well, that's the thing, because the outlawing thing happened 2 days before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that didn't make sense.
I know, and then it was going to kick in after it and stuff, and it's like, no, do it now. If you know that this is a risk, you don't wait until you've packed all these people together. And football fans, it's spontaneous. If there's a goal, if you're celebrating, you hug each other, you're in close contact with each other. I mean, that's why there can't be social distancing at football when football returns. Because I was talking to this with my wife, because I was like, you'd need 6 feet in front, 6 feet behind, 6 feet left and right. What happens then if you need to go to the toilet? You have to squeeze past people. So it's impossible. So, I mean, they knew that you're cramming all those folk together, and it's going to be interesting to see if the Sounders or MLS respond to this. I think this could be a story we touch on next week as well, but...
It has, I wonder if, America's famous for, litigation. I wonder if this will have, if anyone... I guess the article didn't say, right? We don't know if anyone actually got... Do we know people who got sick at the game?
The only person that we know that...
I mean,
there's the Seattle official, so one of the front office staff, he tested and he was at the game. But we don't know if any supporters...
He was sick beforehand, wasn't he?
The article seemed to indicate that he tested positive the following week and he had worked the game. Yeah. No, so, I mean, he might have had it at the game, but I mean, he had worked the game and then he tested positive.
It was the worker.
Yeah, he was at the XFL
They knew about
thing.
that before, that they didn't want to highlight for people.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if someone if someone who was at that game traces the fact that if they're actually able to trace the fact that they maybe got it at that game, then you think there would be a major issue.
Oh yeah, surely open to litigation.
And some of those emails that talk about, what are we going to say now and what are we going to put out after and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, and if not, they couldn't even all agree on that because the Sounders wanted to put something in saying that they were in contact at all times and looking at things, and the XFL were like, well, we don't want that in. And then they were going to send the statement out with the logos of all the clubs, and then the Seahawks, and I think rightly said, well, we don't want our logo on it. This has nothing to do with us right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, because you're using them as the big name to back this, and they're like, yeah, don't put our logo on this. We're not affected by this because we're not playing.
Yeah.
It's just it's a bit of a mess, and I mean the Seattle Times it's not a publication that's like just like
Nationalism.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I couldn't think of, and it's a big paper down there. So the following week and the fallout from this could be certainly interesting.
It'll be interesting to follow to see if anything comes of it.
Yeah, and of all the games that went on that weekend, that was the one that should have been in doubt because that was where the outbreak was happening at that point. Yeah. And I would not, if I was a Sounders fan, which I know you like to say I am, but I'm not.
Oh, you've told us. You love them, celebrating with them.
But there's no way I would have gone to that game. And I think folk that went to that game, in light of what was happening down there, whether it was on or not, it was just crazy. But I mean, at that time, in the US, everything was getting played down by government officials and the CDC. So, I mean, I think we were ahead of the curve or ahead of everything at that point up here in Canada. We were more aware of what was happening and more concerned. Because, I mean, Steve and me had talked that, I mean, that next week, all the games were cancelled in MLS. But if
weren't going to go.
Yeah, if the Whitecaps game was on, we weren't going to it because we were like, it's not worth the risk. Just to go to a football match, it's not worth the risk. Not necessarily from being at the game, but from travelling and everything, all the other aspects of it.
Yeah.
Now, our final story we're going to look at tonight, staying in MLS, and it's an ex-player, Wayne Rooney, who I've been surprisingly praising. It's a guy I was never a fan of really before. Since he has left MLS, I mean, he keeps going up in my estimation. The stuff that he's saying and writing is just spot on, and I'd love to get a chance to chat with him at some point, so hopefully at some point maybe we will for the show. But he did a podcast with his former teammate Quincy Amarikwa, living in America, woo! Always thought that should have been the song they sang for him. And on that podcast he was basically slating the MLS transfer system and saying that the whole structure of it is terrible. He told a story about he was training at DC with a player. An hour later, the player was saying goodbye to everyone because he was getting traded. And he was saying to Steve Birnbaum, what's happening here? I don't understand this. Can this happen? He didn't know he was getting traded. How's that allowed to happen? And he can't believe that system exists. And he says it's only there to benefit the owners. It's not there to benefit the players, which obviously is the case. And that if MLS wants to attract top talent, they need to have a transfer system like Europe. Also, he said, get rid of the salary cap if you want to get top quality talent, because as things stand as it is just now, you're not going to get that talent over here. And I agree with him.
Yeah. I never thought I would agree so much with Wayne Rooney.
I mean, I've described...
In a row, we've been talking about how wise he's getting in his old age.
I mean, it's fantastic. And I've described the MLS transfer system as akin to slavery, which I know is very dramatic, and some folk might get offended by that. But it is, because these players have no say over where they go. And at a minute's notice, and we've had it here in Vancouver, we've had players who just have to uproot their family, uproot pregnant family members. Yeah, I mean, it happens all over the league, and it's terrible. And we've spoken to players, like when Brek Shea came here, we're like, when did you find out that it was happening? And Brek Shea said, about 10 minutes before you guys did, and I didn't even have a chance to tell my wife because she read it on Twitter. I mean, you've got stuff like that. That's terrible. It does need to change. I'm surprised that wasn't something that the players pushed for in their CBA, to be honest. Maybe they did, but I'm surprised that they didn't push harder for it to get it put in.
Well, they can maybe get it put in now because it's not ratified yet.
Oh, that's true. So who knows? It's all up for grabs again. Yeah, and if the league and the owners start pissing the players about, I think they might be a bit more hardball if they have to renegotiate a CBA. Yeah. Anyway, good old Wayne Rooney. But that is it for tonight's show. Just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online, Zach.
Yeah, it's on Twitter. You can find me at ZacharyAM.
I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada, on Instagram at AFTN Soccer, and on YouTube, AFTN Canada. Like, subscribe, share. We've got some videos coming up. I know I keep saying this, but we do have some videos coming up on the channel soon. Don't forget as well, you can also subscribe to our extra podcast. $30 a year, $3 a month. That will get you at least one extra podcast in your email inbox every month. Got another one coming out in the next week or so, so if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. Just watch your emails for that. And if you're not a subscriber, go over to aftn.ca, type in extra podcast, and you can find out how you can be. But we will be back next week with another packed AFTN Soccer Show. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and wash your hands. Bye, everyone.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN